Welcome to 30 Days of Recovery Awareness. Make sure that you are subscribed at Raquel Lopez so you can follow along as we embark and continue on this journey of recovery awareness. We are on day 2 of this series. Yesterday, we talked about faith and how that can be a foundation in your recovery journey and how powerful faith can be. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode yet, make sure that you go back and go to day 1 and start that foundational journey into faith. And there's a lot of things that I kind of talked about and how that can be a benefit to you and or loved one. So today we are going to dive into understanding addiction and day 2, a compassionate approach. And for me, I can be my own worst critic and I can be really, really hard on myself. And so we're not only going to talk about just being compassionate in general, but also some of that self-compassion as we continue on this journey of self-discovery and just understanding addiction. And that's a big part, honestly, of my own personal compassion on myself was just understanding what addiction was, understanding why I did the things that I did, because sometimes I would just get so frustrated with myself. I can be like, why did I do that? Why, when I knew that this was going to happen, I did this? Or why, when I thought things were going to be different, and they weren't, I still did what I did. And it can be really, really frustrating on both ends, whether it is, you who are dealing with the addiction firsthand, or if you are watching a loved one suffer and continue on this path of destruction. It can be really, really hard. And so just know that you're not alone in this process. Know that your feelings are your feelings, and it can be really, really hard. I always say that sometimes there's a simple solution, but that doesn't always mean that it's easy. So know that you're not alone, and I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that this series will help you in that way of giving you hope and guidance and just some practical tools that you can use along the way. So, what is addiction? Let's just start there. So, and just a simple definition of addiction is a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive substance use despite harmful consequences. It also has biological, physiological, and social factors that can contribute to addiction. And I say substance use, but again, addiction is addiction, and it isn't always a substance. My drug of choice was alcohol, but I also have other addictive behaviors that I realized that I had along this journey, and I didn't even realize that they were a part of that cycle. Just kind of that cycle, just so you know what that cycle is just that cycle of shame and guilt, and then the pain that comes along with the shame and the guilt, and then those cravings or the triggers or wanting to feel better, so then you use. And then guess what? You feel better for maybe a second, and maybe you don't feel better because some other things have happened, or you're further along in your addiction. And then the shame immediately starts setting in again. And then that cycle happens over and over and over. And sometimes it started good. Sometimes it started as like, I'm just going to do this because it makes me happy. It makes me feel better. And then you're constantly chasing that dopamine hit. You're constantly chasing that high of wanting to feel better. And you think the next time is going to be better, and the next time is going to be better. And you realize that you have gained a tolerance in that, whether it be you need more to feel better, whatever that more is. It could be like a substance, it could be an action. There's so many things that can be, but you realize that your tolerance has increased. And so that's why sometimes you hear, which is heartbreaking, but you hear people get better they go to rehab, or they get clean and sober for some time, and then they go back out that one more time. But because they've been in sobriety, their tolerance isn't as high, and they go back out and use the same exact thing that they used previously. But because that tolerance has now lowered, it causes a lot of suffering, and even death. And so it is heartbreaking, and it is prevalent in so many different ways. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do a series like this, because one, I personally have 16 years clean and sober. But I also went to rehab twice, and I had tried other things, as I was younger along the way. So it is not my first time to the rodeo. And I also have worked in the field. And so I have seen, the revolving door of, people coming in and out of the rooms of recovery, or in and out of rehab, or just that the families that have been in pain, when they have people that have come in and out of their lives, due to addiction. And so I just have felt just the Lord really put on my heart to create a series like this, that I can share some of my experience, strength, and hope, some things that I've learned along the way, not only practical tools, but personal experiences, and also a little bit of, training and teaching and things like that I have learned, and the educational side of things too. So just know that you are not alone. And I will say that again, you are not alone on this journey of sobriety, if that is something that you have found is part of your current life and current situation right now. But definitely it is something that there have been findings of a disease model, which has to do with like genetics at times. And it has to do with, like I said earlier, that brain chemistry and the dopamine hits and all of those things that can chemically get changed in your brain, and the tolerance and the environmental factors. There's so many different factors that go along with recovery. And so the very first part of that compassionate piece for yourself and for others is to really start understanding addiction and all of that, all of what goes into recovery and addiction just in general. That is something that, you can do for yourself, or if you have a loved one that is dealing with addiction, that's something that you can do as well. And like I said, there's two parts of compassionate, right? The compassionate approach to recovery. It's that self approach of compassion, and then there's that compassion to others. And I'm not saying compassion in like a free ride for them to do whatever they want, and we will get to that in a second. But that self-compassion, because that shame and that guilt that builds. And I get it, and I understand that. I have been there, that shame and that guilt that builds and builds and builds, and you just want some relief. You just want to feel better, and I understand that. And so it's really working on those things in your life, because they can be a huge barrier to recovery. And so, just so you maybe don't know, or maybe you do know, but shame is that belief that I am bad. So when you hear people talk about shame and guilt, people are like, well, is that the same thing? No, they're completely different. Shame is I am bad. It's that belief that I'm personally, my person, I am bad. And then the guilt is that I did something bad. And so it's twofold. And if you have both of those and you're really digging into some really, that self shame and self-guilt, it can be really debilitating. And so working through those things, offering, positive self-talk to yourself, offering forgiveness to yourself, and seeking help in these areas when needed. And I know that I couldn't have done this on my own. And tomorrow, a little shameless plug, we are going to be talking about building a community in recovery and what that looks like and how that can be a benefit to you as you continue to embark on this journey. Compassionate, having that compassion for others is hard. And, I have seen it on both sides. Yes, I've personally been through it. So I have a different probably perspective as somebody who's never been on the side of personal addiction, but it's hard. I've seen friends and, suffer, and their families suffer, and it's it's hard. I've been on both sides of the addiction toll, whether it takes personally on yourself or on somebody else. And again, I just want to encourage you, if that is something that is in your life or a loved one, family member, to really start understanding addiction and take time to learn about what addiction is and about what recovery can do and the hope that is out there, because there is a lot of hope. I know we hear stories so much of the negative part of addiction, but know that there is hope out there, and know that there is a way out. And I am living proof of that. And I have so many other stories in my life that I have seen changed, changed. And there is hope out there. So don't give up. Keep praying and know that there is a way out, and that it is possible. Sobriety and recovery is possible. Excuse me. You will see in this series, you will see me cry. If you're watching this on video, you will see me cry. If you're listening to this on a podcast or an audio, you'll hear me cry. I am a crier, and this won't be the last time that I break out in tears, because it is a hard subject. It is tough. It is not for the faint of heart. I would say recovery is not the easy way out. It is hard, hard work. And if you're willing to put in the work, um, there is life on the other side. There is life. And I've seen so much hope and so many lives changed through recovery. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see. So beautiful. So again, education. So how to foster compassion and understanding, if that is you. Education and awareness. There's books, there's documentaries, there's online resources. This is one of them. I am putting this together because of the hope that I know that is out there, and the hope that I've seen, and the things and experiences that I have had that I want to put out into the world, to know that there is the hope. And so things like this, you can educate yourself on, whether it's yourself or a loved one, and listening without judgment. And I know this is hard. Whether you have been one who has, been kicked, time and time again, have been let down, have struggled, gotten your hopes up, and then it's shattered. Um, but being able to listen and not jump to conclusions or offer unsolicited advice. And I know that's the hard one, when we just want what's best for somebody. We want someone to get better. We want someone to change their life. And we see their potential. We see what their life could be like. We see and we know that they are made for so much more than what they're doing to themselves. And we know that. We see that. We know that there's a plan and purpose for their life, but they don't see it yet, or you don't see it yet. Know that there is a plan and a purpose for your life. Had gotten to a point where I didn't want to live anymore, and I would have missed out on so much if I would have ended my life or given up before I saw the miracle happen of a changed life. I would have missed out on so much. I got married. I have 4 beautiful babies. I went back to school. I get to help others in the profession of counseling, ministry work, so many things that I am blessed and grateful that I get to do because I didn't stop. I didn't give up. And so, even though we might want that for other people, it's not always our place and our time to give that to them. They have to come, and you have to come to a place where you're ready. And for me, that was 16 years ago. I wasn't ready the first time I went at 19 to rehab. I was ready at 25, but I had to get there, which is hard. I know that's hard. I know that's hard to hear, especially if you're tuning in and you're, wanting, someone to kind of fix whoever it is, or you're wanting to hear that one thing that's going to help save them. And I just want you to know that, again, you're not alone. And I've seen miracles happen. And so just keep praying, keep searching, keep gaining that awareness and education and understanding of addiction. Again, supporting, I always get sidetracked, especially when the tears start coming. I'm going to take a little water break. Whew, okay. That's why I wear waterproof mascara most days, because I cry often. Okay. So, and just discussing ways to support and love on ones who are battling addiction. So being able to ask them like what they need. Maybe it is going to rehab. Maybe it is, setting boundaries, healthy boundaries. Maybe it's avoiding enabling behaviors, and having that emotional support. And so it's really finding those times, and asking, maybe it's asking a professional. Maybe it's saying, okay, where's the line? Where do I set boundaries? Where am I enabling? Because sometimes it's hard to see and sometimes we don't know. And that's where the education and the understanding of addiction comes into play. It's learning what we need to be doing to set the boundaries, or what we need to be doing to not enable certain behaviors, and offering that support when they're ready. When I was ready, my mom was there. She drove me immediately to rehab when I said I was done living the way that I was wanting to live. Like, I could not live the way I was living anymore, and I was done. And she knew immediately that if she didn't get me into the doors of rehab that night, I either would have forgotten I said that and just kept going in my addiction, or things would have started getting a lot worse. And so she had learned some things, for herself that she needed to do in the case of that. And she had, had people on standby that knew about addiction. She had learned, where things were and where to go to take me and reach out to people. And so those are the things that you can have in your back pocket if you're having somebody that's dealing with addiction, or maybe you're struggling with addiction. Having those things and people in place in your life. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to be talking a lot about community and building a support system. And that could be on both sides of the coin, whether it be, you are personally dealing with addiction, or that is a family member or a loved one that you are working through this process with. Just having the support on both sides is needed and healthy and important. Okay, I think that is it for today. So I just want you to just know, that all of these things will be helpful to you as you move forward in this journey of recovery, and come back and hear the rest of this series. Um, Tomorrow, like I said, is going to be a really big one. Support was huge for me. It was a pivotal point in my recovery. It was the the faith foundational point for me that we talked about yesterday. And it was the understanding of addiction and learning about it. And it was the community and the support that I needed and received and stepped into that really were huge points, and why I'm starting with these 3 points as we continue and embark on this series. So I can't wait to talk about more of this tomorrow. And I just ask that you share this. However, you share things like this, whether it be on social media or with a loved one, or watch it again and take notes, and just know that you are not alone. Know that you are loved and you are worthy of change. And there is a plan and purpose for your life, no matter where you're at in this journey of recovery. So I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.